for a series of questions at this time. So he's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hill, Medicaid payments are made to states based on the number of people eligible in each state and the state's maintenance of effort match. In other words, CMS has a reasonable estimate of how much funding to request from Congress on an annual basis. Given that for the last 2 years, Medicaid improper payments have exceeded $36 billion, does CMS inflate its funding request to include improper payments? Is that just part of your overhead?
I wouldn't say that we directly, that the measure of improper payments goes into the formula to say what we're going to ask for. It's much more of a actuarial analysis of the trends over time and what we think we're going to need in the next year, given economic and other forecasts. So I think it's baked there, and I think that's the point that folks have made across the board here, that because improper payments are in the baseline, it's inflated, and to the extent that we could reduce improper payments, we would recoup some savings.
Well, you've had a number of recommendations for correcting this. Ms. Tinker, thanks for being here. Welcome to OGR. How many recommendations has HHS Inspector General made to CMS to establish a deadline for complete and accurate TMS data?
We have one recommendation that.
Yeah, please turn that on.
Thank you. We have one recommendation.
You better get that button, all right, now.
We have one recommendation that's currently still on the books for CMS to set a deadline for the completion of the TMSA system.
How about GAO, Ms. Yoakum?
We also have a recommendation. It is a little more detailed in terms of establishing some steps and some dates along the way. We think taking a step-by-step approach would be helpful rather than saying we're going to get this all done by X date.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a process, and I think it's multifaceted. It's reading the GAO's last report that I got on it that indicates, and this would be true across the federal government, but I think it would be applicable to CMS, is about 20% of the improper payments as a result of antiquated data systems. And one of the things that concerns me is the antiquated data systems is an issue that we can resolve. Obviously, we'll have to spend some additional funding, but Mr. Propera, in dealing with this between the state and federal level, is that an issue that one of the things we're saying is that state systems don't always match up with federal systems. You have a communication issue with that. Is that a problem, Louisiana?
Mr. Chairman, data is a problem. It's a considerable problem because we're not dealing with finding a needle in a haystack here. We're dealing with finding needles in fields of haystack. So we have to have good data from the state level on up. And it's extremely hard for my office to get data sometimes from the managed care operators. For example, we keep talking about the improper payment rate being 10%. But that number, I would tell you, is considerably understated because it includes managed care at 0.03%, which clearly we're not looking at the full spectrum there.
Well, Ms. Yoakum, in the last GAO report that I saw, there were 18 federal programs that didn't report. Among those were managed care side of Medicaid. So, and I agree. I've been talking with Mr. Dodaro about this. He thinks the $141 billion is understated because of the failure of programs such as the managed care side of Medicaid to report.
Yeah, the estimation of managed care is focused on a very narrow piece of information. It's focused on what did the contract say that you would pay on a per capita basis, and was the person who you paid for eligible for Medicaid? It doesn't look at whether or not the services were provided at all or whether they were necessary or anything else.
Well, that's an administrative issue because
It is.
The report also showed that you had failure to verify eligibility, failure to do proper documentation. That was about 52% of the improper payments.
Yes.
And one other question, the last few seconds I have, is on the fraud. Is fraud more an issue at the federal level, people fraudulently billing the federal government for Medicaid payments, or is it more at the state level? Where where's the fraud most likely to occur? And Ms. Tinker, if you know the answer to that, you can respond as well.
We see fraud at both the federal and the state level in the Medicaid program, because it is a shared program between both the federal government and the state.
So when someone files a fraudulent claim, they file it at the state level, which then when the state makes the payment, it includes federal dollars, or do they, is it possible that they file it directly with the federal government?
Directly with the state government.
Directly with the state. Thank you very much. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman from Alabama. The chair recognizes